Okay, so we're going to do part 4 of project 2, and it's right here. It's going to illustrate bond pricing theorem 4. It says a bond sensitivity to interest rate changes increases at a diminishing rate as its maturity grows. So we know that the bond sensitivity interest rate changes increases as maturity grows, but this is showing that it increases at a diminishing rate, or it increases less at each incremental additional year of maturity. So that's what we're going to show for this part. It's a little bit more difficult to show than a lot of things that we've shown already, but we're going to do it. So this is part 4. And so I'm going to insert a sheet and call it part 4. And I'm either going to type in all this stuff, or I'm going to get some of these titles from part 3. I told you to type it in mainly because it doesn't save you a whole lot to copy and paste, just because we're going to get rid of a few things. But either way, so you type it in and you give it a thick box border, or you copy it in and give it a thick box border. So coupon payment is 50, yield to maturity is 6%, number of coupon payments per year is, I'm going to put 2. You can leave it the bond that we had before if you want. Okay. So step 3 of this part, which is step 18, is going to be to fill in this chart, which we first have to make. So I'm just typing this information in, 4%, 5%. The price difference is going to be the difference between the price at yield to maturity of 4% and the yield to maturity at 5%. And then percentage change is going to take the percentage change in that price difference, which is going to illustrate BPT 4. Okay, and I want to give a label to these 5 columns. So I'm going to select all 5 of those columns and hit home, and this one, which is merge and center. And then I'm going to type in years to maturity. Oh, excuse me, I put that in the wrong place. I'm going to move it in a minute. And then I want to label the entire table. So I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to use all 5 of these columns, and I'm going to type in bond prices. Okay, and then I want to pull all of these down because they're supposed to be lined up here. And then I'm just going to get rid of this entire section. Delete, shift cells down. Why won't it shift cells up? Down, that's okay. I'll shift cells up. There. That makes it where I want it to be. Okay, now I'm going to use the price function again, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use absolute referencing very strategically here, so that when I pull this formula that I'm about to type in across, it still calculates the bond price correctly. When I pull it down, it also calculates the bond price correctly. So I'm going to use the PV function, as I have been doing, and I'm going to use this yield to maturity, so this is the rate, but I want to anchor that, or I want to absolute reference that to the column, not the row, just the column. So I'm going to push F4. When I do that, it gives me a $sign before both the column and the row. So I call that anchoring, or you can call it absolute referencing, both the column and the row. I don't want to do that. I only want to absolute reference the column. So I'll hit F4 again, and then one more time until I have it in front of just the column, the $sign in front of just the column. Now I'm going to divide by the number of coupon payments per year, so I'm going to push F4 and anchor that to both the column and the row. I don't want it to pull down or across. Number of periods, I'm going to choose that yield to maturity, years to maturity is 3, and I want to anchor that not to the column but to the row, because I don't want it to pull down when I pull it down to 5%. I want it to stay at 3, which is row 4. But I want it to increment when I pull it across, so it'll be 6, 12, 24, and 30. and then the number of periods needs to be multiplied, or the number of years needs to be multiplied by the number of coupon payments per period. So I'm going to push F4 and anchor that to both the row and the column. The payment is going to be that one anchored to the row and the column, divided by the number of coupon payments per year anchored to the row and the column. And then I'm going to put in the face value, which will be again anchored to both the row and the column. And I'm through. Now, if I've anchored right, when I drag it across, it will be correct. Oh, one more thing. I always like positive prices, so I'm going to put a negative sign in front of that to make it a positive. Okay, so when I pull it across, is it referencing the correct things? Yes, so I've done my absolute referencing correctly. Let's say that I didn't do my absolute referencing correctly, and I need to have, I didn't put my $sign on my column there. So I pull it across, and I get an error, or I know that this is the wrong price. So what I do here is, instead of panicking, I look at it. I either push F2 or put my cursor up here or whatever, double click in the column, whatever, or the cell, and I can see what it's referencing. And it's referencing, instead of 4%, it's referencing this blue one here is referencing the dollar amount price of the first one I calculated. So I know that that's the thing I didn't anchor correctly. So I'm going to go back and anchor that correctly and pull it across, and I'll get the correct answers. And you'll see that. I need to make these bigger. Okay, then 5% yield, I can just pull this down. If I did it correctly, they'll all be 1,000. And your challenge question is to tell me why they should be 1,000. So 4% yield minus the 5%, the price at the 5% yield to maturity is the price difference. And the price change, the percentage change in price, is that divided by that minus 1. So it's the 6-year divided by the 3-year minus 1. I'm going to change that to a percent and give it some, change that to a percent, add it in the wrong cell, and give it a couple of decimal places. And then I'm going to drag it across. So you can see that the price difference increases as maturity increases, but we knew that would happen because it's because of bond pricing theorem 2. But bond pricing theorem 4 tells us that that increase is going to happen at a diminishing rate. This is going to get smaller as the number of years to maturity increases. Okay, so now I'm going to do a graph of this. Well, first I want to put a little box around it, because I like having my little box around the things that I want people to look at. And now I'm going to graph this. So I'm going to go Insert, and I'm just going to do a bar graph. And I'm going to let you follow along with me. So I'm not going to describe as carefully what I'm doing here, because you've done charts. You should be getting pretty good at it. I'm just going to graph these 4 because I need percentage change. And I want to give it x-axis labels, which will be the years to maturity. Don't grab the 3 because you don't have a change for that one. And I want to give it some titles. So I'm going to give it axis titles. And I'm going to call this one percentage change. And this one's going to be years to maturity. And I'm going to call the graph BPT4. And that is it.